Good evening, everybody. And I guess I hit the wrong damn button. This is not the. This is not what he just said. This is WrestleZone Unfiltered on Thursday night. We're starting off that way, y'all.
Production issues. There we go.
It's okay though. We're still here, one way or the other.
You got to push through. That's the thing. You can't.
I am good old Jason Mingram sitting here with you and coming to you, I should say, for the third week in a row. Glad to have him. Paul's back with us. Paul, how you doing tonight, sir?
I'm feeling very sore. I had a hell of a workout, and my body hates me for it. So I'm dealing with that. That's.
Yeah, it's all right. I went to the doctor today, and she said you're fat. I said, yeah, it's all good. Well, getting older, I said, getting a little stiffer. She's like, well, both your parents have arthritis, so you're probably getting the onset of that. But losing a little weight won't hurt. Yeah, I know. Okay, I got it. Got you. More water, less fried food, less pasta. Okay.
You could also view it just out of spite. Like I'm gonna do more push-ups just cause forget you, man. You know what I mean? Everybody I know, everybody my age is so old now, so I have to really be careful about that.
Oh, I don't care, man. We all good. We're getting older. It's a privilege that a lot of people do not get, especially when you get up here. I've lost so many friends and family members over the past few years, and it's just thank God for another day. Every day we get up. So we're granted with today. It's the only today we got. So we got to make the best of it.
I'm sorry. Are you trying to attempt to segue into a topic here for today's podcast?
A little bit, because we.
I had a feeling.
Yeah, we lost Sabu this week, and for today's age, 60 is very young to, when somebody's not sick like that, when something came out, I don't know. I don't even know what to say.
To be fair, wrestling is 60 is pretty old for a wrestling.
Well, especially the style he wrestled. There's been some stuff coming out about the last show he did with Joey Janela and this, that, and the other. You never know how much of this stuff you can believe. But you said you had some thoughts you wanted to share on Sabu. Paul, what do you got?
Well, I don't know. He's one of those guys where I thought, I every so often a wrestler passes away and you go, I don't really care. It doesn't really tug on your heartstrings. But Sabu is one of those weird people where I'm at that age where a teenage boy is flipping channels or is looking through stacks of DVDs, and all of a sudden here comes this tan guy with the long hair and just covered in scars. Instant mystery. What is this? Where did he get these scars? What is happening? So I have, 6 or 7 different DVDs on the shelf. I've seen countless hundreds of his matches. Just that natural curiosity. He was that perfect transition of some of the odder Japanese stuff to come to North America so perfectly in that time of ECW. Oh, I feel like it's so much more influential than a lot of people like. We know he's influential, but sometimes when you stop and kind of smell the flowers, you go, whoa, okay, hold on. This guy was here for a lot, and he worked with a lot of really good people. And that was before he even made it to WWE and had, a different run with John Cena and Rob Van Dam and all that. So I think it's incredible just in that short little period of ECW of the wild things. There's thousands of stories that I love hearing. Like he would use super glue and duct tape for his wounds because he'd be in the middle of a barbed wire match and he'd slice his arm right to shreds, you say. I got 20 more minutes to work. Like I can't, you know what I mean? We're not even close to the finish. I'm going to die if this wound isn't taken care of. So there's a few matches with him and Terry Funk and Raven where you see him, give me tape, and he'll tape his whole bicep up because he'll slice it. And he would get up and he would finish the match, and someone's giving him a neck breaker, taping up his arm like a madman.
We were talking before we went on the air about Owen Hart and different things, and you kind of made the compliment to Owen Hart. Going back and watching his matches was like watching a lot of today's stuff back then. Mm-hmm. And the same can be said for Sabu. He was way ahead of his time. I know Terry Funk did a lot of hardcore stuff, but some of that stuff that Terry Funk did might not translate as well today. It would be interesting, but a lot of today's fans might not be able to sit through the length of those 70s matches.
Like
but, Sabu brought that hardcore style mainstream, and he stayed true to who he was. I mean, he left the WWE on his own accord. He did not get fired. He asked for his release because he just, he said he felt like he had sold out to who he was.
There's a few interesting stories about him interacting with Vince, and he's not one for bureaucracy, let's say, and he's definitely not one for people disrespecting him, who like how he would feel. So I hear there's a few stories about him and Vince like just butting heads.
I'm sure.
No,
you look at a lot of those guys that came over not just from ECW but different places, and Vince didn't create the character. They normally didn't get over. A famous story is told by different people was when they brought Mark Merrow in, and they knew immediately from the first meeting what he did that Sable was the star of the two. Vince loved the Johnny B. Bad character. That's what he liked. He thought it was over the top.
It was a good character.
And, it was outlandish, and I've heard Mark Merrow talk about Dusty telling him how to say things and how to do this, do that. But WCW owned that character, and so he didn't know what to do with it. And you see how quickly the wild man Mark Merrow fizzled out, and Sable moved on to greener pastures with Brock Lesnar somewhere out there hunting moose in Canada. So it like say you bring those characters in like Sabu and stuff like that. They, it's paycheck, but to Sabu's credit, he asked to can I just let me go be me.
And it's like not to be let's give him all the praise in the world. Sabu is a type of wrestler where I think that gimmick might be one of the only gimmicks that he could get over, like he could actually do, because apparently he's just his personal attitude. Like, I'm not going to say it was a bad attitude or whatever. Let's just say his style of personality is probably not going to work with like Doink or IRS. You know what I mean? That's who Sabu is. You know what I mean? He's that wild man. But I think he luckily was good at translating that, because you would just see him, and within 30 seconds, you would know exactly what you're looking at. You're like, oh, this is a wild man. This is a savage, an actual, real life, no hyperbole, savage human being. Oh, I get it. It makes sense.
Well, yeah, he was perfect for ECW at the time, because Paul Heyman has repeatedly said that ECW was not built to last a long time. It was built to change the industry, and it did. I mean, it made WCW look at it, and then of course it made Vince look at it, and he started poaching their talent. But he was also paying them, and Paul Heyman telling his story.
Paying them, yeah.
Everybody Heyman telling the story about everybody thought he was taking money out of, taking money from Vince, and he said that's not what happened. I forgot who it was, but it was somebody. They were paying him $1,000 a week to play this rap song on ECW as somebody's entrance, and they wanted him to come up. It might have been Too Cold Scorpio. They brought him up as Flash Funk. But somebody can look that up. I don't feel like it right now. I don't remember exactly who it was, but they were getting $1,000 a week to play that song, for whatever wrestler it was. Mm-hmm. And he goes, Vince wanted the talent, and he said, I'm going to lose $52,000 a year. This is what they're paying me. And he said, I'll pay it to you. So he sent him a check. He sent him the talent. He said Vince will send him a check, or World Wrestling Federation was sending him a check for $1,000 a week. It was replacing the income he lost to send him that talent. So, again, Sabu got eyes on ECW. Sabu was must-see for on ECW. I mean, if you go back, who'd you want to see? You wanted to see the Dudley Boys. You wanted to see Raven. You wanted to see Rob Van Dam. You wanted to see Sabu, because you knew you were going to get something you were not going to see anywhere else.
And speaking of, like, his influence in different areas, he kind of helped build Rob Van Dam. Like, not to take anything away from Rob, because he put in a lot of work, but that tag team with him and Sabu was lightning in a bottle, especially at that time when they had I forget the name of the Cronus and Saturn, and they had
the Eliminators.
There you go, thank you. They had a bunch of really solid tag teams like that, and they bring in some Japanese guys, and they just it was a perfect time for tag team wrestling. So he just helped Rob Van Dam's elevation, you could say.
And Rob Van Dam still gets a huge pop when he comes out to this day, no matter where he's at. So, even being married to his porn star, whatever her name is, I forgot, Katie Lee maybe. Uh, But R.I.P. Sabu. It's sad to hear, and I mean, you're going to hear it, but it's not the we got a lot at one time. Not so many years ago. It was like every other week you were hearing about somebody dying between Kurt Hennig, Rick Rude, the Bulldog. I mean, it seemed like it was one after the other. And it was a lot of the 80 late 80s, early 90s guys that you knew was pumping full of steroids or doing a lot of drugs and stuff of that nature.
Definitely the journeyman lifestyle is not easy on some of these guys, and that's definitely what Sabu was. Like, he was hell of a journeyman. He worked everywhere. And when you look back to the territory, that's what they had to do. They were on the road, they were in hotels, they had to eat fast food. Like, that stuff takes a toll on you.
Absolutely.
Just as much as the bumps, just as much as the falling on barbed wire and thumbtacks.
It's like Ric Flair said. He was married to his second wife, which was Charlotte and Reed's mom. I forgot her name, but he was married to her 27 years, and Beth, that's her name. And that was his longest marriage. And he said that when he got off the road, they realized they didn't like each other. He's like, you hear him talk about it. He's like, no, I still love her to death. She's a great person. We get along fine. He goes,
but we're good in small moments. Yeah, we're not good in these small.
He goes, maybe when we got married, we were meant to be husband and wife. But whatever's happened in the last 27 years, that's just not what we are anymore. And he goes, we figured out really quickly this was not going to work anymore. So, but yeah, I mean, him especially, they said that was the thing with the NWA World Title, that a lot of those people, like Jack Briscoe, when he lost the title, he told him he was ready for a break. And he's told this story. I heard him tell it several times before he passed. He's like, all right, I need a break. Take the title off of me. They said, all right, we'll put it on such and such, and we'll set it up for you to come back. And he's like, I don't want it back. I'm done. And then that's the one thing they all say about that. They're like, it all wore them out, but Flair loved that lifestyle, and he loved being on the road 315 days a year. Yeah.
Well, I feel like naturally in a wrestler's career, there should be people think this is an insult, the down slide. They view that as, that's an insult or it's something bad. No, if you look at any wrestler who gets 50, they still want to perform. They just perform so much less. They just know when to perform. Look at Minoru Suzuki. He's not working every week, but he did a 5-star match on WrestleMania weekend, if I remember correctly, with the blow-up doll. But my point is, some of the wrestlers, they can't accept that, so they don't age out gracefully. There's a good story about Mr. Wonderful, and he had to have this surgery, but he's making all this money, and he said, no, I'm going to keep working. I don't want the surgery.
With his arm.
And now his arm, one of his arms is atrophied, I believe is the correct word.
Yep.
But they can't accept that downward. So that's when the kind of drugs kick in. That's when the booze kicks in. That's when a lot of the problems start.
Yeah, you hear a lot of them talk about it there, because they were just. That's the one thing is it's a double-edged sword for me with the contracts, because they're going to get their money regardless. So if they're just in a piss poor mood one night and they want to go out there and put on a shitty match, then there's really no consequence besides, you all right, man, But back then they got paid on the attendance and where they were on the card, and those guys had to fight and claw to make that. That's why you hear the whole thing. They were so protective of their spot. Well, yeah, they were. That's how they made their money.
That's where you get some of this dangerous philosophy. It happens in CZW. It happens in TNA with some of the X Division guys. Well, if you're doing that spot to get eyes on you, I have to do a bigger spot to get eyes on me. And then you know what I mean? The next person's got to do a bigger spot. So you have these guys that may not be, let's say, the best wrestlers, doing things that you really shouldn't be doing. You really shouldn't be putting, like, barbed wire matches. I love barbed wire matches. I'm a complete hypocrite. I'll say it. I love barbed wire matches. They're terrible for you. They're terrible for your health. They're terrible for the health of professional wrestling. They're not good.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like riding down the road and you see a fiery car crash. I mean, yes, you're not, you're hoping everybody's all right, but you can't take your damn eyes off of it. It's bad, but again, you can't take your
You
eyes off of
do kind of slow down a
it.
little
It was like,
bit.
yeah, but it was like, last month, a month, however long it's been. These days run together for me, but when Moxley and Edge had their match on Dynamite, and he did the backdrop of Moxley onto that damn the bat with all the nails sticking out of it. And I don't cringe much, I don't, but they just happened to catch that right camera angle to where the ref was
Hmm.
trying to get that shit out of his back, out of his back, and I was like, oh, good God. That could have went terribly wrong if he'd went too far in it, if it had just one way or the other. But I mean, it
Yeah.
was like grinding up in the meat of his back, and I was like, ooh, damn.
That's where your spine is. I don't like. I get the whole point that like you bump on your back and you can land safe and all that. I've been trained. I've done 1,000 bumps, but just it's not that board is. It's just not a good bump. It's like I saw someone getting power bombed onto a suitcase. You know those hard shell suitcases with the wheels. They kind of stood it up sideways, and boom on the edge, and everyone I know, even people, other workers in the business, all cringe because they're like, "There's no like that's just on your spine. That's not. There's no magic. There's no trick.
Yeah,
It's just pain."
I haven't seen any updates, but at the WWE pay per view last week, whenever it was, um,
Backlash.
yeah, Backlash, the fatal four way for the U.S. title, when Damian Priest did that South of Heaven choke slam, Drew McIntyre's head did not hit the table; it went straight to the floor, and that's why you saw them checking on him. And if he's not concussed, I don't see how. But
And wasn't there a fella in NXT recently who did a big flippy do off the top of the NX mid
maybe
TNA?
I'd have to go back and look.
Long story short, flip kind of and a half. So they landed belly first. No one caught him.
Yeah.
No one. Maybe one arm, but no one caught him.
See, now you're
And
gonna set me off on another tangent. It's like when I was watching Dynamite last night, and that tag team match, the opener with Paige and with Ospreay against Takeshita and Josh Alexander. It happens, okay? I mean, and it's fine. I mean, the magic's been let out of the bag for a long time.
mm-hmm.
HD was one of the worst things for the sport of professional wrestling to ever happen. But it goes back to having trained cameraman. It's like Josh is standing there. If you're watching it, what seems like an eternity, waiting on I don't know if it was Ospreay or Page on his side, but to come off with that moonsault onto the floor, Josh is just standing there. And I'm like, that's fine. I know he's got to do it, but take the damn camera off of it. It's like,
Yeah, it's unfortunately one of those things where you're not supposed to pay attention to it because you know what I mean. It's like a magician. If you stare at their one hand the whole time, you might catch the trick. But yes, that's part of the show. The cameraman moves slightly, or even
you follow the guy doing the moonsault. Start with him and
okay.
you follow it down.
I'm not about to tell Josh Alexander how to work. I'm
No,
not
I'm
in
not.
that position
He
at
was
all.
doing exactly what he was supposed to do. That's what I'm saying. Just this is on the cameraman.
I'll just highlight a moment that I saw a long time ago. Dean Malenko was in a match, and this moment came up where Rey Mysterio was going to do a big flip-de-doo off the turnbuckle down to the floor. And Malenko saw him and knew, I got to kill 2 seconds or I'm just going to be standing here staring. So he looks up and he goes, my eyes, and does a big sneeze and then looks up and catches him. And people are like, that's stupid. But part of me is like, that's kind of really brilliant. It's such a small thing, but it does save you from that, like.
And I forgot which match it was a few years back. It was a women's match, and Charlotte Flair went up to the top to do that backwards moonsault that she does. It was like 4 or 5 of the women in there, and they did the same thing. They're sitting out. I mean, I'm sure that they got their ass chewed, after the show because how critical Vince was of that kind of stuff. But they had it on camera, and all of them women, like 4 or 5 women on the floor, are just standing there waiting for Charlotte to do her backwards moonsault. And I see the same thing. And I'm a equal opportunity shit on this product if I don't like it on TV. And again, it goes to what I grew up on. I mean, my favorite match to this day, and a lot of people probably wouldn't like it if they went back. Some would, some wouldn't, but it was the Valentine Piper Dog Collar match, from Starrcade '83. Maybe because, I got that soft spot for Roddy Piper. I was there, And see, you're new, so if anybody's listening that's heard this before, I apologize, but I'm going to tell Paul my Roddy Piper story.
All right, here we go.
I am from Martinsville, Virginia, very small southern town. My dad played music every weekend at the VFW. He was the leader of the house band down there, and they had deputies that worked the dance. They took turns in rotation working every Saturday night, so we knew all of them. And when the wrestlers would come to the high school gym, well, we knew the deputies, so I got to go in the back and get autographs. And at the time, I was 81. Only reason I remember that is because that's what he signed on his autograph. But so I was 8 years old. And when Doc was a good sized guy, he takes me to the bad guys dressing room first. And there's Piper and Gene Anderson playing cards. Mr. Fuji sitting over in the corner, and not Stan, but Swede Hansen over there lifting weights in the corner. Scared the shit out of me. I took off running back to my mom. Next thing I know, here's Doc looking down. Doc was like 6'4", 6'5". He was a big dude. And he looked down. Damn it, boy, I ain't got time for this shit. You want to do this or not? Yes, sir. So I go back. Like I said, Piper was the biggest asshole on TV at the time. He had not turned face to go, do the whole Valentine program.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go back there, and I'm kind of inching up, because they were just sitting there playing cards. And he just reached over. How you doing, Squirt? I'm like, oh dear God, what's about to happen? And he was the U.S. champion at the time, and he set me on his lap for a second. Then he like damn near threw me off. Went running over to his bag, grabbed the title, come over, grabbed me by the shirt, pulls me down on top of him. 1, 2, 3, you're the new U.S. heavyweight champion. I'm like, oh Lord. And then he sat back down, and he put the belt over my shoulder, which was probably way more than I did at the time. Set me on his lap and just sat there and talked to me for like 30 minutes. And I told him, my mom told me if I met him to tell him she thought he was cute. And Gene Anderson pulls his glasses off and he goes, "Take these till you down, Mama." Piper was like, she don't need those. He's just got a smart mom. And like I said, it wasn't because I was sick. It wasn't because it was a photo op. That's who the guy was. And from then on, he ruined me, because from then on, it was all about the heels, man. I was like, I got back out, and the main event was him and Wahoo McDaniel. And I'm sitting there screaming for Roddy Piper. And this woman turns around and looks at my mom. She's like, "You need to tell him who to cheer for." She's like, "He cheer to who the hell he wants to." And from then on, I was in love with Roddy Piper to the day he died. That was my favorite. And I got to go over to the good guys dressing room. That's when Bill Eadie was still doing the Masked Superstar gimmick. I saw him had his mask on. He signed. The good guys were not nasty. I don't want to come across that way, but they were more, yeah, here you go, kid. Yeah, here you go.
There is definitely a stereotype in wrestling. Like, I've heard it from fiction, but I've definitely seen it with my own eyes, where the heels are more baby faces in real life, because the heels have to be humiliated in the show. And not a lot of people are really safe with themselves being humiliated. Like, Vince McMahon is a good heel because he pissed himself on live television. That's a good heel, but not everyone can do that. Yeah, so you get this stereotype where a lot of the baby faces might be a bit more stuck up, and the heels might be a bit more open.
They weren't stuck up. They were
might be a bad word, but you get those stereotypes.
They were more nonchalant. I'm like, yeah, there you go. And I got Tommy Young's autograph. Another good story, but I don't know what night it was. We went. My mom and grandma took me every time they came through to the high school, but Jack and Jerry Briscoe had turned heel, and they were feuding with Steamboat Youngblood. And we went outside to leave, and somebody had slashed all 4 of their tires. And so me being a kid, I go running over and ask for their autograph. And my mom's like, "Jason,
not a good time." No.
Well, kind of what she was going with it. And God bless Jerry Briscoe. He looked right at my mom. He said, "Ma'am, he's fine. It's not like we're going anywhere." And looking back at that as an adult, it's just like, oh, that's great.
Yeah, but it's also it's a kid, and you're in this kind of smaller moment. I think they get more pissed off at like airports. You know what I mean? In these like bigger moments, it's like, we're just hanging out. That's fine.
Well, yeah, he did. He looked at his car with all 4 of those tires slashed. Looked right back at my mom like, "Oh, it's not like we're going anywhere."
Kid asks for an autograph. He gets in, just ruins the rims driving away.
And he like he sit there and talk. You know, he was nice. He could be sit there and talk to me for a couple of minutes, and like, all right, all right, kid, let me go figure out these tire situation. Yes, sir. Have a good night. I mean, but you know, it's little stuff like that. But like that was just Roddy Piper ruined me. I was just all about the heels from 1981 on. So.
No, Roddy Piper's definitely a good person to have a story about.
And I got, Ric Flair bought me 2 drinks on the first Nitro that came to Richmond. Because looking back at this as a kid, I don't know how old I was, but we pulled up to park and this limo pulled up and it was him, Buddy Landell, and Don Cornell, if anybody remembers them. That comes stepping out of the limo. And he's fixing his sweatpants, and my grandma goes running over there and grabs him around the neck and screaming at my mom, Brenda, it's Ric Flair. She's like, yeah, I see. And I go over there and I'm like, can I have your autograph? He's like, catch me after the show, kid. I'm running late. Yes, sir. Looking as an adult, I'm like, oh, you were being a dick.
Ask me again when they cost $20, baby. That's
no. We went to the first Nitro here, and I had no idea that they were going to be over there. I just looked, it was the first Nitro in Richmond, and it was packed. And I said, I always want to go over and get a drink and let this traffic die down before we leave. And I'm like, yeah. We go over there. First people we see was Bobby Heenan, Tony Schiavone, and Doug Dillinger. I'm like, oh, well, this is about to get interesting. And within 15 minutes, the place was packed with all the wrestlers and this, that, and the other. My first encounter was, the Big Show comes walking in. I mean, we're packed. The bar was packed. It was a Marriott bar. And Paul White walks up, and he's standing there. And I look up at him. I said, excuse me. He looked down. I said, I don't want your autograph. I don't want to bother you. I just want to stand up next to you. Oh, that's fine. I'm looking for somebody. And like I said, I'm 6'2", and I came up to about here on him. And a buddy of mine was with me. I said, David, stand up. He's like, man, I am not looking at nobody's kneecap. Come on.
Quick, get on my shoulders.
And but anyway, so, Flair was over at the bar, and I'd heard him tell a couple of people that, hey, leave me alone. It's downtime. And I'm like, they're like, what are you thinking? I'm like, dude owes me an autograph from like 20 years ago. And I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go, but I ain't never going to see him as close again. So I'm going to go over there. We'll see how it goes. And I go over there, and I didn't tap him. I didn't touch him. I waited for him to turn around. And when we made eye contact, I was very polite. I said, excuse me, sir. I hate to bother you. I heard you say it was downtime, but you owe me an autograph. And he gave me this, I owe you an autograph, the FU type. And I said, yes, sir. And I told him the story I just told you, and then his whole demeanor changed. He grinned. He goes, you got a good memory, kid. I said, you the man, brother. And he signed the program where he was in the program that night. And he said, you come over here and get a drink? Yes, sir. He looked at the bartender. He said, whatever he wants, put it on my tab. I come back with a beer and a shot and an autograph. He was like, they were like, did he buy you a drink? I said, oh, he bought me 2. And, now, whether he paid that tab or not, that's a different story. I don't know, but he told him to put it on his tab. So, yeah, I've met a few of them.
Oh my god!
I've never had a bad experience with any of them.
Oh yeah. There's definitely a million and one road stories that end with definitely some good experiences. It's like I have definitely heard some stories with Sabu that may not have ended in good experiences, because if I remember correctly, him and Rob Van Dam got pulled over when Rob was the champ.
No, it was just him and Sabu. I've heard Van Dam tell that story, but yeah, but he had just won. He had the ECW title, and he had just beat Cena at one night stand for the WWE title.
Huge moment too.
Yeah. And they got pulled over and had weed. That's one of the stories that Van Dam loves to tell about Sabu, because Sabu's like, look, I just tell him it's all mine. And he's like, man, I'm not gonna let you do that. He's like, you're the champion, man. Let me take the heat. And then Rob wouldn't let him do it. So, but he was trying to save his boy and take all the heat from him, and Van Dam wouldn't let him.
I think that hurt him in the short run, but then helped him in the long run, because if I remember correctly, he got stripped of the title. Like there was this whole.
They made him lay down. I forgot who. First he lost the ECW title, and then he lost the WWE title. It was like within
but it was a big scar. He sort of got humiliated, quote unquote. Let's say. So that hurt him because he could have held that title for a long time. But I think it's one of those moments where it shows your character. So later on, people are going to go, no. Rob, he was right for doing that. So everyone always gives him respect.
Well, that's one of the things that people like about Roman Reigns in the back as well. If you go back, he was supposed to win that first ever Universal title when they had the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And his drug test popped up for marijuana when it was still unacceptable, and he went out there and he put Finn Balor over clean for Finn to go on and win that title. Win it in the finals against Seth. But yeah, he had to go out there and lay down for Finn Balor. You never heard a bad word about it.
I think it's definitely weird when people put strange contexts on that, but I think Roman was definitely not going to be hurt. You know what I mean? The machine was still behind him. Rob was never a Vince guy. I think he was sort of like kind of a Vince guy, but he was more of a Paul guy. So I think that might have hurt him, but like everybody loves him. TNA, he worked with TNA and Impact for a long time.
Yeah, he's one you've never heard a bad word about. Nobody ever has a bad word.
And that helps because when they say, "Oh, let's bring back Rob Van Dam," they're not going to remember the marijuana, or they're going to go, "Oh, he's so awesome. He's very nice. He sells tickets." Like he is definitely what you'd call like a locker room hire.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like he might not sell the most tickets, but everyone's going to be happy when they're in the locker room, and that's what you want.
Yeah, I'm thinking. He said something about that spot with AEW. He was not very happy about that spot that AEW did with Moxley and Copeland. It was something else he said. I guess we won't see him there. No, not for a while anyway. And that's sad because Tony was paying for Pantera, which I was more as soon as they hit the beginning of the walk, I'm like, hell yeah.
I don't know. I think realistically, Rob's allowed to have criticism against that match or those spots without it being like I guess he's not getting hired. You know what I mean? If we were all grown-ups here, we could look at it and go, well, maybe that's not his thing, or he's right or he's wrong, whatever. But I've heard a lot of that philosophy of like, oh, Tony's going to be mad at this. Well, if Tony had his big boy pants on, he wouldn't be mad. We're all grown-ups. Take the criticism and move on.
I know a lot of hardcore AEW fans will disagree with me on this, but if you'd put his big boy pants on from the beginning, CM Punk would still be there. There was no reason for all that shit to go down.
Well, that's a whole other story. But
I did see today where he had released something, or it came out that he had told the locker room they weren't going to be doing all that blood and blade and everything anymore. It was going to be few and far between for bigger moments. Which I hope that's true. I hope that's a true story.
Yeah.
And I think you said you wrestled before.
About a year experience.
About a year.
So,
okay. And, well, the reason I ask is, they like that's one thing I've always criticized AEW for is the fact that, I don't care if it's a table, I don't care if it's a sledgehammer, pick weapon X. Mm-hmm. If you do it every match, if you use a chair every match, if somebody goes through a table every match or every other match, you get kind of bored with it. And, so it's like, and I'll give you, I'm not an Adam Page fan, but I'll give you a perfect example. The first time he ever uttered the words cowboy shit and got that big ass pop, right?
Huge pop. Everybody loved it. Oh my God, flipping out.
And, like a segment or two later, you got Chris Jericho, shit this, shit that, and it just killed the moment. It's like, dude, wait till next week. Hi, Miss Danny, how are you?
Well, we're good. I almost hit a deer on my way home today. She literally, I looked up, I saw her, I heard her little hooves hit the road and run back. So we were that close, and the cat needs to have her eye removed.
Well, that's sad.
Yeah, it was a day today.
Oh. Well, I figured maybe you were on your phone, still doing the locate Wardlow thing. So.
No, actually, I was sending an email to my instructor who has the worst system for exams for a math course, start drinking heavily. So I just had to email her, and I'm like, guys, I'm almost there. I just have to send my email to get my grade changed.
Would you get it changed? Get an A now?
Probably more like a C, but it's algebra. Start drinking.
Well, we've been talking about Sabu and some other stuff. Do you have any thoughts you want to share on the passing of Sabu?
Again, we didn't get ECW up here, but from what I remember seeing him, he's very impressive, and that was a shock that he's gone. And just like JR's colon cancer thing, that also is another shock today.
Yeah,
In fact, nothing could shock me more than today.
Well, one of the things he and I were talking about earlier, it's very sad, especially that, in today's age, 60 still considered pretty young to go. But Sabu also he led a very hard lifestyle.
Yeah, he did.
His body was probably more of about a 95-year-old versus a 60-year-old.
Oh, God, yeah.
With everything he put his body through. And, JR just, last year, the year before, he beat skin cancer. So prayers to him. And hopefully that comes out okay. But I don't know what. They're going right into surgery, so it tells me one of two things. They either caught it very early and can just go take it out, or they caught it very late and they're going there and trying to get what they can and hoping for the best. So it's kind of one or the other. Prayers up to JR. He was him and Tony Schiavone, and a lot of people's childhood. They were kind of more in my late teens, early 20s for me.
That was my Saturday nights as a kid in grade school. Was 505, 605 Eastern, 505 Central on TBS.
I've only been to one wrestling. It was called a Legends or something before they started calling them Comic Cons. But it was years ago, and it was in Charlotte. And it was a Saturday and Sunday. Got there on a Friday night. Go walking in Saturday morning, and as soon as they start letting everybody in, they started playing the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling theme with David Crockett and Bob Caudle welcoming everybody out. I'm like, oh dear God! I'm home. I'm home.
Be still my heart.
Like I said, Tony and Jim for me were more like my late teens, early 20s, mid 20s, Monday Night War era. But David Crockett and Bob Caudle and Gordon Soley was what I grew up on. But
same.
Jim was I think Bob Caudle was probably my favorite to be, and David Crockett was funny because he was not trying to be an announcer. That was like a fan with a microphone, and I don't know if that was just him or if he was doing that intentionally. But when one of the bad guys would do something, like I forgot who it was, but one of the good guy come out and was just getting his comeuppance with it. He's like, kick him like a dog. And I was like,
I know it's on Peacock.
David Crockett was great, man.
If you go under, I gotta think of where it is on Peacock, but it's on Peacock, and you go into it might be WCW, and it's got World Class Championship Wrestling, and they've got episodes from 1985 up there.
Absolutely, yeah. I went through and watched a lot of that.
Phenomenal.
The Iron Claw, for what it was a good movie. I'm sitting there nitpicking as a wrestling fan, going, "That's not when that happened." Where's Carrie's Kids? And then I went back and watched the ID Discovery thing they put out on it. And, they were talking about how they didn't, nobody had contacted them about making a movie or this, that, and the other. They did not know it was going to be made a movie until they saw it on social media. And then Kevin's like, yeah, he goes, I wasn't going to fight it. I was going to endorse it. And, he said he had sat down with Zac Efron and, once the movie was made, and kind of gave him the real story on what happened back then. And, Carrie's Kids were, Lacey, and I forgot the other girl's name, was very upset with the way Carrie was portrayed on the movie, talking about, that he was married, he had kids, and yes, their dad had demons, but he was a tremendous father, tremendous man, everybody loved and respected, and that we've all got our issues, and she was 100% right. So there was a couple of things, Kevin didn't like the way Fritz came across, Fritz was portrayed in the movie, but, it's a lot of stuff back then, so, but,
to kind of segue back to JR off your kind of little bit of a darker topics we were getting into. People go to the doctor. I know we all live in different countries and we all have different healthcare strategies and all, but go to the doctor. I've personally had little lumps removed from me. I'm Irish, so skin cancer is a thing. I've had one. I've got a kind of lump here I got to worry about. Tell your doctors. They don't care. They care, but they don't judge. They've heard it all, and they've heard worse. They've probably had to take stuff out of people's colons. So you coming with cancer concerns, they're totally going to listen to you. Mm-hmm. So on the topic of JR's cancer, he was battling skin cancer, right? From my experiences, those cancers spread. So if it's, if you get skin cancer and it gets into the blood, it can get into other places, and now you have other places cancers, and depending on the place, it's a whole nightmare. Point of the story is, if you have a bump, if you have a lump, if you have anything that's kind of weird and you don't know what it is, get someone to look at it, and if they look at it and go, get a doctor to look at it.
Absolutely.
Just make it easy on everybody, because there's a lot of people that have these stories. Luckily, JR has all these doctors and caring family around him to take care of him. But yeah,
the main thing with that is too is you know your body. It don't matter if you're famous, not whatever. You know your body. So when you're not feeling right, and the reason I say that is that a friend of mine, he never wrestled, but he worked out. He did bodybuilding shows. Big dude. He was a couple of years younger than I was, and when I first met him, he didn't want anything to do with having kids, and the reason for that was his dad passed away when he was 6 years old, and it took his wife so long to talk him into having kids, and he finally broke down and said, "Okay." They had a little boy, and he wasn't feeling real well, so his wife finally got him, took him to the hospital, took him to the emergency room because he just hadn't been feeling well for a few days. They sent him home on hospice with inoperable colon cancer, and within a week he was dead. And their child was 6 years old. And I was like, damn. And so yeah,
we had a similar story with a family member who had a pain in their belly, and they were taking painkillers. And after a while, they were like, "I can't keep taking painkillers." So they went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, "You shouldn't have been taking painkillers this long. Like, this is bad." So you got to pay. You know what I mean? Like, I live in a small town, so we got a nurse practitioner, which basically means like not a full doctor, but they have a pretty good knowledge, like of simple stuff. So you just go in. What's this? I sat there for 20 minutes, asked them a bunch of weird questions. Hey, every so often I get a pain down here. What's that? Oh, it's every so often. They'll explain it. And if need be, they'll go, let's get a blood test. You know what I mean? Like, talk to your doctor is the point of my story right now.
All right, man. All right. I got to stop now. I got to lighten the mood back up. We get
okay.
Here's too dark now. So now that you had those little lumps removed, do you plan to shave?
I look better. With the beard.
I just figured that would be the next step after getting neutered.
I would just get waxed.
I walked right into that.
Go to a salon and get waxed.
I'm gonna need a laser.
I get my eyebrows
That's
waxed.
my next guess.
There you go.
I mean, wax what you want. Watch Wanda Sykes.
Wax on, wax off. Wax on,
if you want to see something funny, Google YouTube Wanda Sykes bit about getting waxed for the first time.
It's like I can.
Wanda Sykes, she's funny anyway, but that bit had me.
I can imagine what it feels like, because having someone put you in a headlock, if they really squeeze it and it just pulls all the beard, you can just hear it ripping. You have to tell the guy, like, lighten up, buddy, you're killing me here. But yeah, I've had a little bit of hair forcibly removed, let's say, due to wrestling. So I can imagine that waxing feels probably about as pleasant.
Well, on Dynamite last night, we saw Gabe Kidd's debut. What did you guys think about Gabe Kidd?
You
I confess, I haven't watched Dynamite yet because I've just been super busy with work, the whole cat issue, and my heart just melted at the sight of Ethan Page and Ricky Starks. I like Ethan Page. I shouldn't like Ethan Page, but I like Ethan Page. And I told him this on Twitter, but I'm like, Ricky, I'm sorry, but just to I love Ricky Starks more than I love Ethan Page.
Well, I told you that was one of the things that I was really upset about when AEW had the TNA partnership going on for a little while. I was hoping that with Ethan there and Alexander still in TNA, that they would reunite the North.
Oh yeah,
and give us a couple of North FTR matches, and we never got them. I was like, damn it.
Yeah, I haven't. We're still watching NXT. I still haven't gotten to Dynamite, guys. I apologize,
I
but
did not watch NXT Tuesday night. I watched the new episode of The Handmaid's Tale.
the what?
You ain't seen that series on Hulu?
No.
I don't know if you like it or not.
It's a pretty famous series. I think it's a book series.
We're on season 6 right now.
It's like a dystopian sci-fi.
Yeah, basically, make a long story short, the United States has kind of went back to 1880 ways, and it's a lot of it. And like the what's remaining of the United States, they've called it Gilead, and what's left of the United States is hanging out in Canada trying to figure out how to get the states back. And like that's about all I'm gonna say about it. You can Google the trailer for it, because how they treat women is not very kind.
Well, speaking of hating America, I've definitely seen Gabe Kidd work, because I'm a big New Japan fan, and he's been training there for years, and he's been working his way up the card. And honestly, I love Gabe Kidd. Like, I can't. I don't know. Some people don't like him. They view him a bit like a brawly John Moxley, but he's got the mouth of Kevin Owens. He's got a big, brutish kind of style. Like, he just hits hard.
Like Kevin Owens.
Like Kevin Owens, but he's got
like
a big.
This guy, and I do like
He's
him.
sort of like
if he can talk like Kevin Owens, like I said, I haven't heard him talk, but if he can talk half as good as Owens can.
Talks he's very English, so he's
got
that.
There's not one guy in the Death Riders that cuts a decent promo.
Don't think that kind of British. Think that like East End.
Kind of like Lord Alfred Hayes. Lord Alfred Hayes in WWF British, not Lord Alfred Hayes.
Think
British.
if you were in World War I and across the trenches, that kind of like just savage, just. I will destroy you. I will smash you. I will beat you to pulp. Like hard, street, roadmen.
Yeah, like Lord Alfred Hayes was in the AWA.
AWA is a little old for me, but yeah. Just not that like
Hayes knows what I'm talking about.
English. It's like that English.
But can he wrestle? Because remember, AEW likes to hire people who live in Cucamonga, and Cucamonga's got backyards, and they can't wrestle.
Well, speaking of English, we're
Gabe Kidd is very highly trained.
You haven't seen it yet, so we are going to get Nigel McGuinness back in the ring again.
I know it.
Alongside Danny Garcia to take on FTR, and that was a pretty stiff promo Stokely cut last night, saying that when he was kind of saying no, I don't want to do that. Danny, FTR is the best tag team in the world. That they would kill us. And Stokely piped in because he was up there in his face. He's like, "You're damn right you couldn't beat FTR. You could barely beat Hep C." I was like, "Oh, he did not just go there." And I was like, "Yeah, he did."
I love Nigel.
No, but this was Stokely that said it to Nigel.
Oh, okay.
Because that's why he was out of the ring for a long time. Was he was diagnosed with hepatitis C. That's why he quit wrestling. And,
also a very serious topic, but yeah.
But I was like, oh, that's stiff. But then FTR come up from behind, and so we're going to get that match. And then moving with the English, we're going to apparently get Randy Orton and Nick Aldis at SummerSlam, which I am stoked for. I am stoked to see Nick Aldis in the WWE ring. It's way overdue, well deserved. I really thought we were going to get Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis like at Survivor Series one year, because they kept having them kind of clash a little bit on, well, you run things on your show this way, I do it the best way, So it looked like they were leading up to that, and they kind of got rid of it. Now they kind of work together. But after the third RKO that Aldis suffered at the pay-per-view at Backlash, it looks like we're getting those two at SummerSlam. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
I don't even know what Backlash was, because I felt like it was, and we were sitting there watching it, and I'm just sitting here. I was just like waiting for something to happen. I was waiting for a moment. I was waiting for, oh my God, to happen. But it was like an episode of Raw that was under 3 hours.
Well, I think I don't know if you were here earlier or not when we got to this, but I was telling him with during that fatal four-way, Drew, when they did the South of Heaven choke slam, his head missed the table. It went straight down to the floor, so that's why the medical was checking on him, and he's got to be concussed from that. Maybe, Hopefully not, but because they hadn't really said anything. But that just looked like it hurt when it came.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
And this is the double-edged sword with the Cena stuff. For me, I can go back long enough to where I see what they're doing. It's a bigger story being told. Cena did his best to hold his emotion in after the match. You see him looking at the belt and kind of looking around at the crowd, kind of ducking his head because it's a when that's your last time. Maybe not your last time in that city per se, but the last time you're going to perform in that city, especially as long as he's been doing it. For people to watch that match, it's he's kicking out of RKO's, and they wasn't an immediate pin, so they're selling it a little bit, kicking out of the AA, not tapping out to the STF, and then just getting pinned by a simple belt shot after you see so many people kick out 5 times from 6 different belt shots. They're going back and they're telling the story. Because they finally brought up the fact, I forgot which one of them were talking about it, when they brought up that Cena had lost to Austin Theory and Cena had lost to Solo, and it had been so many days since he actually won a singles match, and the last time he'd won a match at WrestleMania before he beat Cody was when him and Nikki Bella beat The Miz and Maurice in that match, and he asked Nikki Bella to marry him right there. And I'm like,
and I called their breakup right down the middle. And
did they stop selling this whole big match?
If you pay attention to what's going on, Cena coming out with the all black intro, and I'm going to do things my way, and showing. I mean, they made Randy look like a beast in that match.
They really did
until the finish to me, because like I said, you see so many people kick out of belt shots. They did the same thing to Cody. I mean, how many times have we seen somebody get kicked in the dingleberries and kick out? It happens all the time, and now they're letting stuff like this, win in a title match, which is fine. I mean, it happened all. I mean that's what I grew up on. So, but like I said, I think the bigger story here for me is we're going to see where it goes, who Cena wrestles. It looks like his final match is actually going to be a Saturday night's main event in Boston, not on the actual pay-per-view. It looks like it's going to be a Saturday night's main event from what I looked at the schedule and everything. But
honestly, the fact that they're not going to have it be on Raw against Kurt Angle, even if there's just no match, it's just, that's what it needs to be. That's the ultimate John Cena leaving the company is the exact, he goes out on Raw, he cuts a thing, who in the back has what it takes, Kurt Angle comes out and the whole crowd just goes, oh, I get it.
Yep.
And they can have a little match. You don't even have to
the
make Kurt
about
make a
bump. The whole crowd probably wouldn't get it. So it would be those of us going, I see what you're doing here.
Yeah, but even still, like a modern fans would still kind of get excited by like, oh, you know what I mean? Like
if they looked it up and saw the backstory, they would. But,
and I feel like they would know who Kurt Angle is.
I'm very perfectly convinced. I'm highly convinced that by the end of all this, we're getting the double turn. Cena will go back face to retire, and we're finally going to see the heel Cody, which I think would be a much better way to tell that story than him just going, okay, Rock, yeah, I'll be your champion. I think watching the slow, Cody start to get, like I said, Cena told him on that SmackDown before Mania, you got 2 choices. You can be the good guy or you can be the champion. It's your choice. And that was the decision he had to make at WrestleMania when he threw the belt down. And then Cena kicked him in the balls, hit him with the belt, and pinned him. So, what Cena told him came to fruition. And so, we haven't seen Cody since WrestleMania. And, like I said, I could be completely wrong, but that's where I think they're going with it. I think that at the end of it, you're just going to see the slow last couple of months of turn.
I think that line has a bit more of wider implications to the you can be the good guy or you can be the champion, because in Japan, Hiroshi Tanahashi, who's been there since 2004, 2002, he's retiring, and they're giving him the hero's exit. Like every show, Tanahashi's last event in this town, they're giving him that heroes kind of send up. So that line, if you're a bigger fan of the pro wrestling culture, kind of sits a little deeper, because you're like, well, you can be the good guy, you can be Tanahashi, who's going to go out and just play that role, or you know what I mean. You can go out on top. Because Tanahashi's not going towards the belt. He's too old. It just doesn't make sense in story. But John Cena,
that's the only
he
thing
can go for the belt.
That's the only thing I'll give them is, to me, losing the way he lost the last few times he come in before now, you kind of had to. I mean, because Super Cena was it was a thing of the past. Big Match John, it was a thing of the past.
Boring.
Well, yeah, because
I like Big Match John in general, like that concept. But if he's always winning, then it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, but like I say, he lost to Theory, who they've completely buried since then.
Oh, God, yeah.
He lost to Solo, and it wasn't really a good match either with Solo. At least him and Theory had a decent match. That was Theory carrying that match. At his age and where he's at physically, he's probably still stronger than half the locker room, but he can't move like he used to. And so, and again, for me, and it's the American audience versus the Japanese audience too. It's two completely different things.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people fail to realize that it's not maybe so much the product as it is the culture. So certain things, there's things that'll work in both places, but a lot will not. And
it's definitely the type of character, because Hiroshi Tanahashi can do that because he is, for people who don't know, think of like 90s Hulk Hogan. The peak of good guy Hulk Hogan, that's basically who Tanahashi is. Children love him. Babies love him. He starred in a movie where the whole plot is a child finds out his dad is a bad guy wrestler. How can I trust my dad if he's a bad guy? That's Tanahashi. He's the ultimate babyface. They call him the ace of the universe. If you were in danger and you looked at 10 people and you saw Tanahashi, you'd go, that guy will help me. You know what I mean? He's just one of those people. So could John do that? Maybe. He also has that type of character. But he also has the type of character you can do something else with. And you could go down a different... You know what I mean? It's like Tanahashi might be doing that because he doesn't have a lot of options. John can. Let's do something different. Let's put people over. Because that's what you need to do when you're leaving the business. You got to go out on your back.
Absolutely. 110%. And the thing, like, when we get back with the difference in the two, like New Japan or Japan in general, people can go over there and get over with their in-ring work.
Mm-hmm.
And that, how many characters over the years, I mean, you can go back, even shit when I was small, got over that couldn't talk. I mean, the one off the top of my head I can think of, we could say The Undertaker, but he had Paul Bearer, he had Percy Pringle.
Mm-hmm.
A good example I like to use is Jeff Hardy. Now, Jeff Hardy can cut a promo, but when you look at Jeff Hardy, that's 1,000 times more than listening to him talk. Some people, you know what I mean? Like, his physical charisma is way bigger.
One of them.
Yeah, some people just have that.
And they did put the title on him for a little bit, but I mean, to ascend to the status of a Tanahashi or a Cena, somebody like that, if you can't talk, like, it's not going to happen. I mean, Jeff Hardy is going to have his own dark side of the ring story.
Look, John Cena and Tanahashi have starred in movies for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, get past that they're handsome and they're in good shape. They're charismatic. They can, you know what I mean? They enunciate well. All that stuff that you have to get past that glass ceiling.
And I was probably one of the few that liked Matt Hardy better than I did Joe. Because when they split them up and he started doing that Matt Hardy version 1 stuff with the Matt, the Matt Facts and the Mattitude, and that was good stuff. That song, that
was good.
That song,
that broken Matt Hardy was something special.
Well, that he was good with that. Of course, I'm going back when they first split them up. That whatever the hell that song was, I can slam a tornado. That was one of the best. I mean, you go back, that entrance song still holds up to this day. With some of the new stuff they've got out, and like I said, I was Team Matt, but Matt was more the ground wrestler. He was more the actual wrestler, where Jeff was the dare taker. Very well out there. That he liked his extracurricular activities.
That was the flyer.
Yeah, and he got over with a lot of the fan base of going. They're like, "Damn, that's me." He's just a little more athletic than
but all Jeff had to do was come down the ramp.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, he could cut a promo and everyone would just be like, I don't know, I don't get it, I don't know. He would come down the ramp and he would do the dancing and everyone's like, oh, I get it. Oh boy, do I get it.
But you also go to a good example of when everything had started going to more realistic storylines from the whole characters, like Bobby Heenan. You say about the Ultimate Warrior, yeah, the entrance was great, but then the bell had to ring, and when they tried to bring him back in WCW, yeah, he got a pop when he first come out there for the first minute and a half, but after that, nobody cared.
The pop kind of fizzled.
Well, it did because not only could he still not wrestle, but the entrance was not the same. They tried to give him this ominous, white cloud smoke stuff, like kind of like the Sting entrance and stuff, and it didn't work for him. At least in the WWF, he had that when that beat hit, it was kind of like the Road Warriors. I mean, when Iron Man hit or what a rush, I mean the crowd popped like crazy, but again, the bell had to ring. So.
Unfortunately, that's the problem with wrestling: is the bell must ring, and you must wrestle a match.
Well, I mean, Undertaker's talked about it, about why he wanted to do the American Badass gimmick. And he's like, the character had done great. He goes, but things were changing. I needed to be able to talk, and he goes, I was very, very pigeonholed in that character on what I could do and what I could say. He goes, I wanted to show more of me, and he goes, it worked. Then we went back to the character, and that worked again too. So he goes, I'm very blessed where I've been.
That American Badass Biker Taker, that was like the best version of him. The original Taker was creepy because when they showed the camera, if you remember that camera angle, they would always show him like from ground all the way up walking. That was creepy. Ministry of Darkness, that was creepy, but it was a little too out there for me because it was kind of that supernatural-ish, which really doesn't fit in pro wrestling. But that Biker Taker was the best one. That was like the best version of the Undertaker I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm more of I'm old school Undertaker. I like especially the way they did it. When they brought him back where he'd been injured, and they did it with when he come out on the bike, but he still had the long leather trench coat on to kind of tie the two characters together to bring it together for everybody, and so. But yeah, I'm sorry. I like the way they tied it together when he'd come out. But other than that, yeah, I'm an old school Taker fan.
I'd pass on Taker, to be honest. I know that's such a controversial thing to say. Like, not many people like hearing it, but I could live without the Undertaker. So
I could live without Cena.
Crucify me, how you will.
So I'm with you, Paul. I could. How you feel about Taker is I could do without Cena. In fact, fun fact, Paul, I was at Payback 2013 and 2014 in Chicago, and I was the only woman in the whole Allstate Arena yelling, John Cena sucks. I was singing it. A little girl, when I went to the one in 2014, little girl was next to me, cutest little thing you could ever meet, and she charmed me out of glow bracelets and Twizzlers. She's wearing John Cena shirt. I'm sitting right next to her yelling, John Cena sucks. And I was. And
we got a lot of stuff coming up. I mean, this month alone, the weekend of the 24th, on the 23rd, you'll have SmackDown. On the 24th, you're going to have Saturday night's main event.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the 25th, you're going to have NXT's pay-per-view, whatever that's named this year.
That's on Sunday the 25th.
On Sunday the 25th, but you also have that night Double or Nothing coming out from Arizona. So I don't know if they're going to be on at the same time, what they're doing, and then that's like a big weekend for WWE with the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday of Saturday night's main event, takeover, and then the next Raw portion next night, and then you're getting Double or Nothing on the 25th as well. I'm not even sure if Moxley has a match that night or not, because I know they're doing the finals of the.
Does he have a tool belt since he's a plumber or carpenter or what?
I don't know what he's doing, but yeah, there's all kinds of stuff coming up with that. So that we have to look forward to. Again, Gabe Kidd just debuted last night. Interested to see where he goes, and let's see. Well, we got to think out in the future. Let's rattle off some things in today in pro wrestling history. No, I can't remember all this, so I had to write it down. So I'm going to play for the camera. 14 years ago today, China wrestled her final match and her only match in TNA.
God bless her soul.
Today, Dragon Lee turns 30. Happy birthday to the Dragon.
Wear tights. No one wants to see you in your jocks. Okay.
25 years ago today,
Tonight,
on Monday Nitro, Ric Flair beat Jeff Jarrett for the title. It was the sixth time the title had changed hands in 5 weeks. Before the end of May, Flair was stripped and awarded back to Jarrett, which Flair then won again, and then won again by Jarrett. This is why WCW won.
And then he went out and got hammered probably too.
Probably. And 30 years ago today, the Boss made his debut on Monday Night Raw.
Bruce Springsteen?
First.
Oh.
Ron Simmons turned 68 today.
Happy birthday.
Kevin Von Erich is 67 today.
Happy birthday.
60 years ago today, this is for Paul. The AWA World Title change not to include Vern Gagne occurred when Mad Dog Vachon lost his belt to the Mighty Igor. We're going way back there.
Holy cow.
As soon as you hear Gagne, you know it's...
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. 21 years ago tonight, the Second City Saints, CM Punk and Colt Cabana, defeated Mark and Jay Briscoe to win the ROH Tag Team titles.
Oh, God bless Jay Briscoe's soul.
And then 60 years ago today, somebody I talked about earlier, Jack Briscoe made his professional wrestling debut.
Oh, my God.
So we've hit about the hour. So Danny, any final thoughts on what's coming up here in the next couple of weeks? We got all next 10 days. We got all kinds of things happening.
No, I'm excited to watch the NXT pay-per-view.
Yep. If he's not under contract, you might see your boys sitting out in the audience. That's how they like to debut people most of the time.
Yeah. No. I was just saying that about somebody, and then my husband he goes, "What are you watching?" He goes, "You're watching NXT." He goes, "I'm not going to watch Trick." I'm like, "Show some respect or get out."
Oh yeah, Trick's taking on Joe Hendry that night. It's first time the TNA title will
love
be
Trick. And again, I never watched NXT because I tuned in years ago. It was boring, but then when Starks went over, I'm like, yeah. And interesting too. I don't know. There was something, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, that MJF is supposedly going to get together. Is reportedly supposed to join the Hurt Syndicate only to turn their back on Reform Sable with Hammerstone and Wardlow, but that people are saying Wardlow is most likely heading to WWE. And I'm thinking with that, if Starks can get released and show up on NXT the day after he got released from AEW, then Wardlow can get released and show up at NXT or somewhere the next night too.
Well, and I've said this because I don't want everybody to think that I just have negative thoughts on AEW. I do not. There's a lot of people that need to stay or are better off there, coming there. Ricochet, latest. Yeah. I think he's better off in AEW. Mm-hmm. MJF was better off staying in AEW because they are not going to let him be that over-the-top ass that Tony lets him be on TV.
Oh no! They're gonna water him down, similar to a vodka tonic at a bar and charge you.
Tony Storm
make him work shows, and that's
Tony Storm. I mean, they've done great things with Tony Storm.
Oh, jeez, my God.
They let Swerve Strickland shine.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to, I know Ricky Starks, they can say all they want, but when he started having his issues was when he was pictured with Cody at WrestleMania the year before. That's when you started really not seeing him on TV a lot. And, Ricky seems like a good dude because he won't say anything bad about Tony or anybody. He's like, it is what it is. Tony knew I was going. That's all he'll say. But like I said, there's Wardlow though he's one of those that I think, whether he gets superstardom in the WWE or not, they've started and stopped with him so many times in AEW that it would take a lot of zeros for me to give you one more chance to see if you're actually going to use me right this time. Like I said,
another one who I feel like would benefit from staying, and I question more of just his booking. Will Hobbs needs to be featured a lot more than he is.
I think he missed the boat with that. I think he would have been a great addition to the Hurt Syndicate.
Yeah.
To get him over with MVP talking.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Will can talk okay, but I think being around MVP, MVP can help him with his promos.
Mm-hmm.
you see that Bobby Lashley's never been great on the microphone, but when it's done
Oh
right,
no.
you can get over with those type of people. I like the little throwback, to Leo Rush. Oh, come on, Bobby, after our pass, because a lot of people don't remember that Leo Rush was his manager for a while when MVP was not in the WWE. He was his hype man, not his manager.
Who is the kid that's with Leo Rush? Is that Action Andretti?
Yep, he's got cable.
I'm loving that little feud between them and Top Flight. It's very, very entertaining.
The only thing is, it's like, I get why they did it, but it's, when you put the titles on two guys that look like Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, and then you send out Action Andretti and Leo Rush, Leo Rush is about 4'8", 150 pounds.
Well, they're bigger than the Young Bucks and Marco Stunt, but yeah, go on.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, the majority of the tag teams, I mean, hell, I think besides the Hurt Syndicate, we haven't seen Brian Cage. Brian Cage and Lance Archer look good together, but take them, and then you've got FTR, who's two kind of really when it comes to stuff like that. I mean, Cash is a decent sized guy, but Dax looks like the guy that's going to be delivering your Amazon package, and so I mean, you got
I'll be looking out for him.
You got two Greek gods standing out there with the tag team titles on them. Yeah. I hated to see it happen to Private Party, but in a realistic point of view, that's what needed to happen. If you're going to put them in the ring with two guys like Shelton Benjamin.
And where has Private Party been?
They have not been on TV since they lost titles. I've asked that for weeks, and nobody can seem to.
Wait a minute. We know why. Because we book names out of a hat, and we flip coins to do our booking. And you wrestled last week. Oh, you can wrestle, and we just do like rotation, kind of like I rotate my purses and my makeup palettes. That's how Tony Khan books AEW.
Well, we'll see. Well, I mean, like I will be interested to see All In. First off, I want them to do well in Texas. I want them to pack that stadium because it'll be good for the business, and instead of and the premise of they can only draw a stadium show by going overseas. I want that gone. Just let's let them grow, and don't worry about what the big dog over there is doing. Do your own thing, and they'll do the same. I mean, you want to take your little pot shot here and there. I mean, it's wrestling. Go ahead. You want to take a little nudge, but don't have your temper tantrums like Tony did there for a while. Going, oh, he did the same thing to Jim Crockett. I'm not Jim Crockett. I got so much more fucking money than Jim Crockett. Shit.
Yeah, okay, well, you wasted on people that don't deserve big contracts.
That's my biggest problem with AEW. It's Tony. I mean, I thank Tony because he gave us an alternative. But on the flip side, it's like all the negative stuff with AEW comes out because he just don't know how to keep his mouth shut. It's like, dude, just right.
Yeah. So they are doing a series of shows in Chicago. I just saw that was booked. And I guess according to Ticketmaster, you pay for all 6 shows. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Now, they are doing it at a smaller venue that is just north of Wrigleyville. So
they were in Chicago last night.
Yeah, it's they're doing 6 shows. They're doing a couple Dynamites and Collisions, I think, late June, all of July, I think.
It would depend on how much the tickets were. Because, I mean, really, if I can go to 6 shows at a decent price and get them all for a decent price, I'm all in. No pun intended.
Because we got Paul, we were actually at Dynamite for Thanksgiving last year, and we were section 2, row 6, right behind ringside. We got noticed by AEW personnel. I resisted the urge to jump over and sit in commentary and take the mic out of Justin Roberts' hand. But no, we had really good seats, and we are looking to go again this year. It's a lot of fun. They usually have it at the Wintrust, which is a smaller arena compared to the United Center. Do we know anything about All Out happening this year? Has anyone seen anything regarding that? Because if it's in Chicago, we're going.
No, I have not. Like I said, I know they were in Chicago last night. And that's the first I've heard of it. So, I mean, that's the bad thing. The Richmond Coliseum closed down, which was a staple for wrestling. I mean, for both companies, and since that's closed down, the only thing that we really had open around here is do amphitheaters for outdoor concerts. So, and they don't come to Norfolk and Hampton as much as they used to. It used to be like a 3-night tour. It depends on which way they were coming. It'd be Norfolk, Hampton, Richmond, or Richmond, Hampton, Norfolk. And So yeah, we're not getting much around here. I don't know if they're going to build something else or they're just going to let the Coliseum sit there and rot. I don't know what they're doing with it, but it's I don't get nothing around here to go to anymore. So
Move
but
to
we'll see.
Wisconsin.
Have you find out like have you seen the prices on it or no?
I haven't looked at the prices. I just found out about it yesterday, and like I said, we're debating on going to one of the late July shows, but I don't know if you have to if you have to buy all six to go to all six shows, because we would not be able to go to 3 Dynamites with our work schedules. I mean, we're like 2.5 hours, about 3 hours from Chicago, so we could drive down there the same day when the show's over and then drive back. But I don't know. We're kind of debating, but we're also waiting for all to see if All Out comes back to Chicago, and we're definitely going to Dynamite again in November.
Well, good. Yeah, keep us posted. Find out what it is.
Absolutely.
Because like I said, if you have to go to all 6 shows, I would be interested to see the ticket prices. See, kind of do.
Yeah, I don't even know what we paid for our seats for Dynamite. Because I was actually working a job that I couldn't get access to my phone where my husband could. But the interesting thing, again, WWE tickets, I want to go to a SmackDown. I want to see Punk. I want to see Braun. I want to go to a Raw. But I'll put it to you this way. For one price, last time I looked, a WWE ticket for like the, and we usually like the 200 level seats, you could get at least 4 or 6 tickets, AEW tickets, compared to the price of one WWE ticket.
Oh, yeah. It's gotten ridiculous.
It's gotten insane.
They're pricing themselves out of their own fan base.
Yeah, they really are.
They are and they're not. And the reason I say that is that the one thing they've gotten, and I think it can only go so far. First, let me say that before it starts, backing down. But one thing that they have done really well is, we were talking about the vignettes and the packages they show, that if you haven't watched any TV, by the time the match starts, you know what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But what they've done really well, especially when it comes to Raw, SmackDown, and their pay-per-views, is instead of just, it's just an old wrestling show. They've made it, and it's an event. There's all kinds of so much stuff going on before and after and around. It's like you're going to a happening, not just a wrestling match. But again,
there's an old expression WWE tried to get over that backfired tremendously, and they tried to say this a lot in ads. We can find them. I'm not a wrestling fan. I'm a WWE fan.
Oh God, I remember that.
It's a weird corporate psychology. This was, I want to say, in the early 2000s, because they're trying to separate themselves from pro wrestling and wrestling. And they were sports entertainment.
I remember that.
So a lot of the arguments that people can make is like WrestleMania isn't booked as a wrestling show. It's booked as a sports event. Anything could be on WrestleMania. Apparently, we saw that with the last one. Anything could be on WrestleMania, but people are going to go. It's 2 days. There's a week-long festival surrounding it. It's like what you're going for is less now than what you're going for. I know that doesn't make any sense, but the wrestling doesn't have to mean as much because the overall package counts for more. Like back in the day, in the 70s, you'd go to an old rundown arena. So the wrestling had to be good.
Or a high school gym or a bingo hall.
Yeah.
Or you were at the Omni in Atlanta.
But now it's like, we got a week-long, tickets with hotel. It's completely different.
I forgot who asked Bruce Pritchard, but he was talking about it one time. They're like, why does Vince hate the term professional wrestler so bad? And he was like, he doesn't. That's how he made his money. He said his thought process on not saying professional wrestling or I'm a professional wrestler on TV and saying you're a superstar is because he said it's opened up stuff for like Cena and The Rock and Kevin Nash and all these different people to go do movies, and they're not being pigeonholed as just a wrestler. He said that was his thought process.
And there is also a very specific type of self-promotion, because if I promote myself as pro wrestler, I'm promoting a culture along with me. You know what I mean? Pro wrestling. Oh, what's that? I go look that up. Oh, I could go enjoy another pro wrestler. But if I limit my language, I'm a superstar. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm promoting myself in my league, but I'm not promoting the culture, which a lot of people don't necessarily like, but it's very smart from a business point of view.
Well,
Because if we're promoting pro wrestling, that means I'm promoting AWA because that's wrestling too. In the big, you know what I mean? In a general bubble. So some people go, nope, cut that right in half.
well, I'll tell you, that's one thing I was grateful to Vince for when he was buying all that stuff up, because I know the network was his idea. And I don't think I left the house for a week when the network premiered. I was watching all that old stuff. And I was like, you old bastard, I'll give you this one. You did good on this one. But Danny, one of the things we talked about, I know you touched on it a little bit when you first come on, but I'm going to give you the last word on Sabu. He and I talked about memories of Sabu. So, you want to go ahead and give us a final thought on Sabu tonight?
Sabu was one of the most unique characters. And again, there's just something in pro wrestling where you can be a guy like Sabu, you can be a guy like The Undertaker, you can be a guy like Lesnar or Lashley or Batista or Flair. Sabu had a gimmick and it worked well for him. He was an amazing talent that paved the way for people almost like the Hardys. He paved the way for your smaller guys to do the stunts that they're doing. Ricochet, I remember, did a lot of that, in WWE, and does it in AEW. But he was just so unique, and there's nobody that's going to come along in this business and be able to copy him. That's just who he was, and he will be missed. He's a lot like Jay Briscoe. I mean, in the sense that they were so unique, they almost looked, I don't want to say intimidating, scary, kind of like how Lashley looks intimidating because he's so massive. But this is like intimidating, scary, as in, holy cow, you scare me. I'm afraid of you. That's kind of how I saw Sabu to a degree, but just an amazing talent that's going to be missed in pro wrestling.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly, and I'll say this for Sabu as well. To me, he was the last of a breed. Whether it was, nobody's willing to take those kind of risks for their body, which I don't think that's true. I think there's a lot of guys out there that would do that to get over, to get their name known. But as far as where wrestling has came to the entertainment side of it, you're not. I was telling Paul earlier. There's a story out there that Tony Khan is cutting back on the blood. Not completely, but kind of to try to make it special. Not bleeding so much on TV and pissing off Domino's Pizza because somebody's using a pizza cutter during a commercial.
It's honestly one of the greatest moments ever in professional wrestling, ever.
And it was.
Wait a second. Remember Betsy? Who was the other one? There was the Spurs, Ron Bass's Spurs, and he cut open Brutus Beefcake's forehead.
Yeah, and like I said, you're not going to see that kind of stuff anymore, and I just don't think there's. Unless it's a CZW or a backyard promotion that's going to let people do the things that Sabu did to get himself over. And to me, Sabu didn't have a gimmick. Sabu was the gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much like a sick Nick Mondo. Like, that's just who they are. They're just insane, unfortunately.
And so, like I said, he was the last of a kind, in my opinion. And he will be sorely missed. And I hope that's the last one we got to hear about for a while. I hope JR surgery goes well.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know with the NXT pay-per-view coming up, if they sign Wardlow, maybe they put an E at the end of his name so you can't spell Wardlow without WWE.
He copyrighted his name.
Well, he can copyright it. They can still put an E on it if they want to copyright that.
Honestly, Jason, that's a great line.
You like
really
that?
Yeah, that really is a great line. Honestly, 10 on 10. There.
But we are all finished for the evening, and I know we can kind of babbling about different things tonight, but we all kind of stuff going on. And when you have two legends like Sabu pass and JR be diagnosed with colon cancer and going under, JR is 70-something years old, and I'll throw it back to a Kevin Nash line when him and Ricky Morton were having all their issues, and Ricky accused him of just going in to have surgery so he could take time off and get paid. And Kevin Nash, you little son of a bitch, every time they put me under the chest, I don't come back out. and he's 100% right. It doesn't matter how old you are, but
Mhm.
with JR's health problems and him getting older and the Bell's palsy, the battle with skin cancer, his age and everything, so they can, and I'm not trying to wish harm on the man. He was part of my early adulthood, and I love listening to him and the King years ago. They were the soundtrack for Raw. I mean, you can't, go back in all those historic moments and not hear JR yelling Stone Cold, or hearing Jerry Lawler go, show me.
By God, he's dead. By God, he's dead. Best line ever.
But I mean, it's you never know when you go in for surgery. I mean, Chris Candido, perfect example. He just broke his leg and got a blood clot and passed from that. Something as simple as that. You never know when your time's up, and you never
don't get in an airplane after surgery.
Yep,
that's what we learned from Chris Candido.
Absolutely,
don't get in an airplane.
But again, it gives something that simple, that like we went back to earlier. But know your body, listen to the doctor, get checkups. But you just never know when your number is going to be called up. And not to end on a sour note, but I mean, I've had.
Okay, how about this? Speaking of odd breeds and strange people, there is a wrestler in New Japan now. They're having their tournament, and his name is Ninja Mac. And he's one of his clips got viral on Reddit because he does the handspring backflip. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So he does it. He goes to hit the guy. The guy's opponent powders out of the ring. He does it over the top rope and continues. And he
I saw that.
Chases his opponent up the ramp.
I did see that.
Boom, over the rope.
Simone Biles could probably call him for lessons.
Yeah.
This guy, that's his style. He's very much like a Cirque du Soleil acrobat. But that was honestly probably one of the most impressive things I've seen in a while. And that's what that guy does. So if you liked that, you'll like how he wrestles.
Yeah,
I thought that was just amazing.
I saw that clip. He's sitting there doing the over the rope, then continued all the way down the aisle. I'm like, again, it's like, what the hell is that?
And he's kind of a chubby dude too, but he's got all his moves are spin kicks and stuff. He's not too flippy, but a lot of it is that kind of level stuff.
Japan, I am still on the hunt for my Great Buddha figure. There's 2 of them out now. I'm gonna find one here soon enough. And yes, I could order it off Amazon or eBay, but that takes the fun out of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I thought that isn't a story about cancer or anything. So yeah.
The only ones I get off eBay are the old WWE. My favorite line of figures they ever did was the WWE Classic. That they had everybody. That's where you could find Jack and Jerry Briscoe. You could find Nikita Koloff, Dusty Rhodes, Terry Funk. I mean, all those old school guys. It's the first time they really started putting out the old NWA, AWA guys. So, but on that note, we're not going to bring it down. We're not going to be somber anymore. The cat's told me I got to get off. She's ready. She's ready to sit on that and be petted. So, until next week, Paul, Danny, thank you for joining us. Everybody, thank you for joining us. We will see you next week.